Hi, welcome to Virtually Speaking. I am Francois and this is my host Lisa. Today we are going to take a few minutes to find out more about virtualization.
Good evening, Francois. Thanks for having me. There's a lot of hype around this technology within the industry, and pretty much all the major operating system vendors are supporting virtualization in one way or another. But why has virtualization become so popular?
Well, Lisa, let's look at the traditional model for managing your IT infrastructure. Now, in the past, if you wanted to invest in a new accounting package for your organization, you first had to buy in a server and load an operating system. For example, Microsoft Windows onto it. If you wanted to expand further, say, and deploy an ERP application, you would have to invest in another server with another copy of Windows. So for each new application you want to deploy to your organization, you go through the cycle of buying new servers and installing new software.
Wow, this certainly sounds like a costly affair, and there are quite a few more limitations to this traditional model that I can add. Firstly, you cannot just migrate, or in other words move, your application and operating systems from one server to the next. So in the event that one of your servers have a failure, it is close to impossible to migrate data seamlessly to another server. This can have serious implications to your day-to-day operations.
That's right, Lisa. You're so clever with this stuff. It's the fact that your server utilizes at most 10% of its resources. So, if you spend 10,000 Rand on a server, you can say that you are essentially underutilizing 9,000 Rand of computing power. What a waste of money.
Shoo, Francois, wasting 9,000 Rand. The amount of shoes I could buy with that money. And another cost is the additional IT support you need to manage your servers. IT staff earn way too much. Also, you need to factor in the increased power consumption for every additional server. All in all, we can see that expanding your IT infrastructure, in other words, IT hardware, can become a costly affair.
Ja, ne? You took the words right out of my mouth. So let's hand over to Tyron, Peter, Johan and Lawrence for a simple explanation of how virtualization actually works.
So, what is virtualization? Simply put, virtualization or virtual computing makes one computer act and perform like many others. It can also be seen as the process of separating the software layer of a computer from the hardware layer and act as a go-between for these layers.
Picture virtualization as a flight simulator. From the ones you play on a computer to the big simulators used in a flight school, the basics stay the same. You have software that is giving you all the information a real airplane would give you, and the software believes that the hardware, the plane, is there. You just don't have the actual plane. The simulator knows how to take your input from the keyboard or the joystick to make your virtual airplane fly.
So, what Tyron is saying is that virtualization allows you to run your operating system of choice, whether Windows, Linux, Mac or many other types, without it being aware of the hardware it's running on. Simply put, you can run Windows 8 on a MacBook or Linux on your PC, as long as you have that virtualization layer between the hardware and the software. You are not limited to match the software and hardware to have the same types of matching.
Peter, I would like to take your idea even further. The flight simulator analogy assumes a single piece of software, like Windows, running on a single piece of IT hardware.
Almost like this rider on this motorcycle, the hardware can carry only one piece of software at a time. So think of your morning commute, where you don't just see motorbikes, you see cars, buses and trains. You have multiple transport options to get to work. When most of us drive to work in the morning, we drive alone in our cars. There are many reasons we do this, but I can pretty much guarantee that it was not because your car cannot handle more people. Your car was designed to carry 4 to 5 people comfortably.
So Johan, am I understanding what Peter and yourself are saying by inferring that a PC running Windows is the equivalent of a motorcycle carrying a single rider? Then a modern server without virtualization running a Windows server is the equivalent of a car with only one driver. That would mean modern servers actually have the capacity to carry a far larger load. So I guess this is where virtualization comes in. Comparing it to carpooling, you take the passenger, which is the software and Windows, from various cars, the servers, and make them ride together in the same vehicle, the hardware.
I like your analogy. I can take it even further. You can get a bigger and better piece of hardware, and it could be the equivalent of a bus. You'd have 10 or 15 servers, the people on the bus, running on that one piece of hardware, in this case, the actual bus.
Or you could get 3 large hardware servers and link them together in what would be a train in our analogy. Multiple engines pulling multiple cars full of passengers. Even better, if you have one train carriage that is carrying less passengers than the other train carriage, you can then rearrange the passengers without stopping the train to get a better balance. So, passenger distribution per carriage become equalized. That will make sure no carriage is underutilized or exceeding its capacity.
Okay guys, let's stop for a moment and ask the critical question. Why in the world is this important to my business?
Well, let me answer the question based on the stories we just shared. The short answer is that your organization saves money and resources. This means less weird people like me hanging around dark corners, as Martin likes to say. The long answer is that you can run many virtual machines on a single server concurrently, each one with its own operating system and each one operating independently from one another, utilizing server capacity to its fullest.
You also consolidate the management of your servers. Instead of having, say, 10, you now only have 1, which means employing less people to look after equipment. This also means less human errors. Come to think of it, a great advantage is that you reduce energy use and power consumption. But most importantly, you save money and capital expenditure on investing in more hardware.
Excellent work. That explanation is just short of magic. I'm confident that a Blue Bull or even a Manu supporter will be able to understand virtualization after this session. On that note, back to the studio.
Thank you, Lawrence. So, Francois, in summary, by virtualizing, you can install many virtual machines on a single server, optimizing resource usage and increasing efficiencies in power consumption and physical space utilization, all leading to a far greater return on investment.
And as a final point, Lisa, we mustn't forget that with virtualization, in the event of a catastrophic failure on the server or disaster recovery within an organization, your IT administrator can simply move the virtual machines from one server to another and your operation should and could continue seamlessly. That is all we have for this evening, folks. Good night from us at Virtually Speaking. Please do not try anything you've seen without adult supervision. Good night, go well, go shell.